Friends, hello, and welcome to episode 547 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today, my guest is Nidia, and she is the mother of a child with type 1 diabetes who also has ADHD. We're going to talk about that and a lot more. This conversation, as I'm thinking back on it now, I think involved Japan, moving. There was a lot happening. I hope you enjoy it. I made the edit to this episode like 3 weeks ago. So at this very moment, as I'm putting together 12 episodes in a row so that I can go on, not even vacation, I'm going away for the weekend to go to a wedding. I'm just trying to get ahead. Everything's running together on me a little bit. I apologize for that, but Nidia was terrific. That I remember. I remember having a really warm and wonderful conversation with her. And I hope that while you're listening, you remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is brought to you through the generous support of Touched by Type 1. Learn more about them at touchedbytype1.org or on their Facebook page or Instagram. Do you remember when PBS used to do that? Like, today's programming is brought to you through the generous support of our sponsors, and then they would list them off and you could buy an umbrella or something like that. I should start doing that. It sounded very official. Anyway, one other thing before I get you to the show. There are a number of people who support me and the work I do through buymeacoffee.com/Juicebox Podcast. And there were a number of people that came in this week to buy me a cup of coffee, but I'm here to list the ones who became members. Someone who used the name someone: Sue, Yoli, Sarah, Amy, Stephen, Connie, Anna, Laura, Marinda, Melanie, another someone, Corey, Jessica, Nancy, Sue, Shannon, Marilyn, Alyssa, Larissa, Melissa, Leah, Blue, Julia, Julie, Grace, Daniel, Jennifer, and Jeanette. Thank you so much, everyone. That is just very kind of you, and I really appreciate it. buymeacoffee.com/Juicebox Podcast.
I was like nervous. Now I get why people get nervous, because you're now like a celebrity.
That's silly. You realize that, right?
Yeah, for the type 1 diabetic community, you're like a celebrity. You're like,
well, I woke up.
So it's like, oh.
Well, if this makes you feel better, I woke up this morning late, so I'm still sitting here in a pair of sweatpants, like excited to take a shower after you and I are finished.
You know, I thought that was the case. I'm like, I'm sure, because you've done this for so many years.
Yeah.
Like he's probably still asleep.
I'm not prepping for, like, I've been up for 45 minutes, don't get me wrong, but like I took the dogs out and fed them, and you know, like that's pretty much it. And now we'll do this. The idea that there's any celebrity attached to this is patently ridiculous. So don't worry about that. Okay.
All right, fine.
So you
don't take it.
No, I appreciate it. I really do. But it just, you don't need to be. No, you know what? It's funny. You don't need to be nervous, and yet everyone's always nervous. So I don't know what to say about that. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
My name is Nidia, and for the purposes of your podcast, I am the mother of an 11-year-old type 1 diabetic. Mm-hmm. I'll use his name. His name is Santiago. And we've been at it for almost like 3.5 years, almost 4. This is like, we're starting our 4th year. It'll be his 4th year in August. So he was diagnosed August of 2017.
When he was like 7-ish?
Yeah, I think he was 8.
8. Okay.
Was he? 8. Yeah, he'll be 12 this year.
I like it when you can't remember the dates anymore.
I know, yeah.
It makes me
I had to think about it.
Yeah, my wife's like, remember we were talking about when Arden was diagnosed, and she looked at me and she's like, you don't know the date, right? And I was like, oh, I have no idea. I said, I know it's in August.
So
And
you don't know the date? I know the date.
do you?
August, yeah, 24th, the 24th is when we went to the hospital.
August 24th is when you went to the hospital.
Hmm.
I wonder if Arden was the 22nd, maybe. Or if I'm remembering the 22nd because that's her birthday. There's no way she was diagnosed on the same day as her birthday.
You
right?
said a couple weeks after her second birthday.
Yeah.
I think I remember that from the podcasts.
100%. So she was born July 22. So a few weeks later.
So add 14 days.
I don't know. You were very literal when I said a couple of weeks.
Okay, sorry. You're right. August sometime. Yeah.
When I say a couple of weeks, what you should infer from that is I don't remember the exact length of time.
Okay.
I like that you're like, few is 3, Scott, a couple is 2, and damn it, 14 days after the 22nd is when Arden was diagnosed.
I'm a math person. I'm actually a math teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you say a couple weeks, I'm like 14 days.
Gotcha. And it has to be. I have to be honest with you. I'm going on my blog now to see if I can figure it out.
Go ahead.
Hold on, I'm scrolling. It's a very well written diagnosis story. Hold on a second.
I should write my own before I forget the more details than I already have.
Yeah, the details will leave you. Well, there you go. I did not put the date in here. I know I launched the blog in 2007. It was the year after. Would I have had the foresight to do it on the exact day? Probably
I don't know.
not.
You're a man, so probably not.
Probably not. Seems like a lot of planning, doesn't it? Okay. So Santiago's tell me a little bit about his diagnosis, please.
Okay. So let me take you way back. So we're a military family. Mm-hmm. And we were stationed in Okinawa, Japan from 14, sorry, to 2017. Yes, that's 3 years. Mm-hmm. And that was really tough for me because we had been on the West Coast in California for 17 years. You know, like I had never moved. I didn't want to move. And I hated the idea of being overseas because I was away from my family even more. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas. And so, you know, we were in San Diego. So that's not too far. It's a 12-hour drive. And I just hated that idea. But, well, too bad. Military, you go, or he goes alone. And I wasn't going to let that happen. Not with 3 kids. We had 3 kids at that time. Mm-hmm. So we left, we're there. And the last year, school year, 2016 through 2017, my mom gets sick. And so, I mean, she's always had health problems and stuff. But this time it was a different, you know, she lost weight. Mm-hmm. She couldn't eat. She was in pain. She cried on the phone with me all the time. And, you know, I was away in Okinawa and she was in Texas. And that's what I feared the most, you know, from going to Okinawa, something would happen. And it did the last year. And so she got sick. She got diagnosed. I flew over because she was going to have a procedure done in late November. So we get to, by that time I had my 4th child, which is a little girl. I had 3 boys and I finally had a little girl. So I took her with me and I left my 3 boys behind. And I was supposed to only be there for the operation. We were thinking it was just a tumor, but, you know, we find out it's cancer, stage 4. And so, gosh, I always get emotional. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I didn't know this was going to happen. As you started talking, I was like, "What's about to happen here?" So,
but I always do, you know. And I like to cry it out because it's always on the back of my mind. It's always, it's something that, you know, it's like the grief that you always carry that it just kind of pops up.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm okay crying. And I'm sorry if I make you uncomfortable, but
No, I'm okay.
I'm okay crying.
No, don't worry. I'll be crying by the time we're done, apparently, too. Be fine. So let me just understand one thing. You took your daughter because she was little,
yes.
And were the boys sort of old enough to stay with their father? Was that the idea?
Yeah, kind of. My youngest was 3, I think, at that time. Let me see. Yeah, he was 3 because he was born in 2013. So he was 3. So, but he went to daycare because I was online teaching and stuff, and I would always take him to daycare because I didn't have time to. Him and my little girl, I would always take them to daycare because I didn't have time to do online school. And it's not like I'm teaching, but I'm grading papers and I'm replying to emails, and I couldn't do it with them being at home.
Yeah.
So they always went to daycare. So that was set up nicely for my husband, for him to take care of that 3-year-old because it was an all-day daycare. Mm-hmm. So I took my little girl with me, and it was only supposed to be 2 weeks. So find out, she has cancer, and she went through her operation. She was in the rehab, and she begged me, just come back. And I said, okay, I'm staying. And my mother-in-law was also like, yeah, you should stay. And I said, okay, well, I'm staying indefinitely. So I ended up staying from November all the way to April.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was so tough on me. I mean, me emotionally and the kids, obviously, but me because I'd have these dreams of that I'd lose my kids. Like I just went to the park and I left them there, and I left, and it was because I left my 3-year-old because he, the other ones, they can find their way home. The 3-year-old, that hurt so bad. Anyway, back to the point. Did you ever
consider them packaging the 3-year-old up and shipping them to you?
They should have.
I mean, you poke a couple of holes in the side of the box, the kid's probably going to be fine. As long as you handle with care on the side of it. The boxes that are marked like that always show up in my house very, very well.
Maybe that would have helped ease some of my pain, but that.
So I want to really understand. Obviously you just felt like you abandoned your daughter, and we know you didn't. But that's right. How it was striking you, and you're describing 5 months or so, right? That you were gone. It's a long time.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and
I was. Mm-hmm.
Were you caring for your mom, or were you just there supporting
Yes,
her?
I was. Okay. No, I was helping my dad because it's only my dad. I was helping him take care of her with whatever he needs because, he's a man, and I mean, God bless him. He's wonderful, and I love him. He took care of her so well, but I was there to also emotionally help him go through this, and help each other go through this, and just taking care of my mom's needs whenever she needed to be bathed, or, I mean, he did it too, don't get me wrong, but
it's a lot.
It gets so person. Tiring.
And he was probably older too. How old was your mom at this point?
She was 73.
Oh my gosh. And your father is similar age?
Yes, he was 75. Yeah, he's 2 years older than.
Okay. Yeah. So help is definitely needed.
Yeah. And I have 2 other brothers, but my younger one, he's got his own family, and the older one, he's a lost soul. He's like alcohol, drugs. I mean, that's a whole different story.
Well, we weren't calling him for help.
Yeah, exactly. We were not going to ask him for help. In fact, he was more damage, than help. So I was there, and I'm the only girl in the family, and it's kind of expected. I don't know.
No, I understand what you're saying. I don't understand why it happens like this, but it definitely does happen like this, because you said something so interesting. You said, my brother has his own family, but you have a family, and your brother wasn't like helping going, oh, my sister can't be here, she has a family. It's just that it's the way people
well, yeah,
think
that's
about
true.
it.
Yeah, but he's a teacher, and he has his own job, and I get, he couldn't be there 24/7, and I was working online, and that kind of just worked out because I could work from anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't want to take you through the pain of your mom, and there's no reason to. I just have this feeling like you're going to tell me that while you were gone, your son was diagnosed with type 1.
No? No.
Okay.
But that's where it all kind of began. I think that stress that was put on him without his mom for almost, half a year was a big stress on him. Don't you think?
think that when I look back and look at all the things medical that I've seen pop up in people's lives that are wrapped around autoimmune somehow, there is some sort of a major stressor at some point, which it sucks because it leaves people with the idea that if a major stressor never happened, this might not have ever happened to me. But, at some point in life, something stressful is going to happen. So,
yeah. It'll happen you're right, at some point. And so who would have known? But I mean, I'm not pinpointing it to that, but that was a big stressor on him.
Right.
And well, let me take you back even further. When he was born, that was in 2009. We had just moved from San Diego, California to Oceanside, California, which is like 50 miles away. And he was, and he was born in Oceanside because my husband, changed jobs, and I was pregnant. I had just left a job that I had in San Diego. And, I had stress at that time. And when he was born, my husband's like, oh, by the way, I'm getting deployed to, was it Afghanistan? Yeah, to Afghanistan. And so, I was so stressed. And the baby, he was a baby. I remember thinking when he woke up in the middle of the night crying, I'd be like, oh my gosh, when can I return this baby? And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is my baby. I can't return him anywhere. And I was like overwhelmed with this, like, oh my gosh, because he would cry so much.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. Seriously, raising a child is a hellscape. And they start crying, or, my son threw up a lot in the beginning, stuff like that. It's just, you're not ready for it, is the truth.
He was my second child, still. but still, it was very overwhelming because there's like a 5-year gap between my firstborn and him.
Yeah, no, it's just a different thing. Like now, if you could take my head and drop it in a 25-year-old body, I could raise a kid no problem now.
I agree.
Yeah, because now I know what to ignore and what to pay attention to, and I know what's important and what's not, and I know what's scary and what isn't. Now I have all the information and none of the energy. I'd be a terrific parent now of a younger child, but
none of the energy though.
No, right. But in truth, if you brought a baby here, I would die in like 3 weeks of being exhausted, probably. Well,
you're ready to be a grandparent, maybe.
I don't. Please. I got it. So there are some days with this autoimmune stuff, I gotta tell you, I'm just ready to get to the end, like whatever that is. Like let's fast forward, please.
A cure. That's the end. I don't know.
I would like this to stop, please. But seriously, like, so,
sorry. Yeah.
No.
So we were back. Yeah. Let me go back to the story. Yeah. So I remember him spitting up a lot as a baby. And sorry, I'm gonna take you back even more. In the last trimester of my pregnancy, like the last month or so, I remember like my urine smelling very sweet, like I never had maple syrup, but I think like maple syrup. It was very sweet, and that kind of struck me. I'm like, that's kind of weird. That this never happened with my first child. Anyway, I wonder if anyone else had that in their last few months of pregnancy and has a type 1 child. But anyway, he spit up a lot as a baby. He didn't like for us to hold him like laying down. He always wanted to be upright, like over your shoulder. I remember that. And as he grew, I remember him having like really poor eye contact with us. He was very, what is that word that they don't think about the consequences? Not a daredevil. Impulsive. Thank you. Right. He was very impulsive, and he was like a little daredevil. I remember the word parkour because he would like jump around and at that time, parkour was like really popular, but he was 2 years old. He didn't know anything about, popular things.
He just threw himself all over the place.
Yeah. He would jump off of, small benches and didn't think like, I'm going to get hurt. Where my firstborn, who, I know he was already 5, but at that age, he knew there were consequences. He was more laid back, and he more settled down. So I noticed that difference in my type 1. He was very different than brother. And when I tried to teach him stuff like letters and stuff before he went into kindergarten, he would close his eyes on me and he wouldn't open them, and I couldn't teach him anything. He went into kindergarten knowing 2 letters, the letter O and the letter X. That's all he knew. And I was so embarrassed, but you can't teach your child, I mean, I didn't want him to hate learning. Right. So I just backed off.
And so anytime you tried to like direct him with something or focus him on something, he just stopped you?
Yeah, he would just close his eyes. Wow. And didn't want to hear it. So he went into kindergarten knowing nothing almost. I don't think he didn't even know how to like write his name. Anyway, that's that.
Do you realize about ADHD at that point, or how long does it take you to figure that out?
I didn't think anything about ADHD. I just thought I didn't even think anything. I just thought, what a difficult child. He's always been a difficult child. He's hard to love. That's what I tell him. You're hard to love because of your behavior. And I'm so mean and strict. And I mean, I guess, I don't know. I'm just trying to teach him well.
So is ADHD like, is it autoimmune? How does it thought of?
I don't think it's autoimmune. I think there's something with their brain chemistry or something like that. That it's different. It's wired differently. And I mean, he is kind of weird. Like ever since he was small, we're having a conversation, whatever. And he's like, oh my gosh, look at that bug. And it's like on the wall, something you would ignore completely. And he will focus on the tiniest, insignificant things. And video games, he could be there all day.
I wonder why that is.
He could focus on that.
Yeah, that's no problem. Is school still an issue as he's older?
No, because he's on medication.
Okay. I have to be honest. Studies indicate that both children and adults can develop ADHD infections, and an autoimmune response can cause encephalitis, brain inflammation, which may result in behavioral changes. Or I don't know if maybe that's a very specific thing. I'm not certain. But there is.
No, let me take you back again to the diagnosis story.
Okay, yeah, go
ahead. So this, all this poor eye contact and refusal to learn, and carried him into kindergarten. And so he's still okay in kindergarten. He didn't have he's not diagnosed with type 1, but in kindergarten, his teacher tells me he rolls around on the carpet, doesn't listen. He doesn't do his work when, you give him a worksheet and it just sits there unless someone's right there telling him exactly what to do. Oh, Lord. So that's when I took him to, I'm telling you his ADHD diagnosis and his type 1 diagnosis, at the same time.
Well, no, that's fine. Because after we get through it, I want to understand how it impacts your life with type 1 and all that. So it's fine.
Oh, gosh, yes. So
can I ask a question before we move forward? And
sure.
Please don't take this the wrong way. Do you have ADHD?
I know my brother probably does. I think
You can't blame me for doing that. I grew up on 70s and 80s television where there was a cliffhanger like every week. It's just how my brain works. I waited an entire summer to find out who shot JR, and it wasn't that exciting when you found out. I'm just here real quick to tell you about Touched by Type 1. It's a type 1 diabetes organization whose goal is to raise money towards a cure and help people living with type 1 diabetes. That really is it. You should learn more about them at touchedbytype1.org. They're also on Facebook and Instagram, but you really just take a minute and check out the website. They're doing some pretty great stuff down there. touchedbytype1.org. While I have your attention, I'm going to remind you that there is a series within the podcast. Actually, there are a number of them. I'm just going to go over them super quickly, and that's for new listeners. And then we're right back to it. there is the Diabetes Pro Tip series. I can't tell you how proud I am of those. I hope you find them. They begin at episode 210 in your podcast player and are listed at diabetesprotip.com. Also at that link is the Defining Diabetes series, which I don't even know. Started so long ago, I couldn't even tell you when, but somewhere in the 200s. And again, they're also listed at diabetesprotip.com, and they're on the front page of juiceboxpodcast.com. The Diabetes Variables series is really picking up steam. There's, I think, like 8 or 9 episodes of those at this point. Really wonderful short conversations talking about the different variables that impact your life with type 1. There's the After Dark series, where we talk about everything from having sex with type 1 diabetes to complications to getting high while you have type 1 and having bipolar, just a bunch of stuff that you don't hear about usually, but we talk about here on the podcast. There's a series about algorithm pumping, how people eat, all different kinds of how people eat episodes, flexitarian, intermittent fasting, Bernstein, FODMAP, on and on and on. I'm proud of those series, and I hope you find them. It can be tough, I know, with a podcast that has over 500 episodes to find 10 or 20 mixed in somewhere. And that's why you need to go to juiceboxpodcast.com or diabetesprotip.com to find them. I really think they'll be worth your while. All right, that's it for today. Touchedbytype1.org. And then check out the, make sure you understand everything that's inside the podcast. The show has really become a tapestry of information about diabetes. And I'm trying to help you find all the patches because I know some of them might be blending in at this point. Hey, while you're at juiceboxpodcast.com, up at the top, there's a link to the free private Facebook group. There are over 15,000 people in there now talking about type 1 diabetes. I bet you have a lot in common with them. That's about it. All right, let's get back to Nidia. Find out if she has ADHD.
No, I don't.
Okay, because you just have your storytelling style is interesting. It's different than most people that I talk to.
I want to get everything in there. How's that?
You feel compelled not to miss anything?
Yeah, I want to get everything in there, and I know you don't have that much time.
No, you're fine. You're telling a story. It's like a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like John Travolta's alive, then he's dead, then he's alive again. And it happened. Yeah, it happened so long ago too, and I just kind of want to go in chronological order so I don't miss things. You don't have to feel any pressure, but I appreciate. I was like, I gotta ask because you jump back and forth a lot in your story. So I was like,
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'm just checking into things. Well, however this goes is how it goes. You don't need to feel any pressure about that.
Okay.
But yeah, so he's in school. Acts like you expect in kindergarten. There's not a lot to do, but you're saying he can focus on some things, but not on other things. And I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what I would do if you put me in that situation. I'm sure I would cry in a closet, but
the teacher told me, and I don't know if it was her idea or my idea to get him tested for ADHD. Mm-hmm. And so we went through the process. He gets a Vanderbilt assessment, which is like a test. It's not a test. It's a questionnaire. Mm-hmm. So the teacher fills it out, the mother fills it out, and somebody else who helps or who sees him interact. And he gets like 3s on fails to give attention to detail or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork. A 3 very often. Mm-hmm. Has difficulty sustaining attention to tasks or activities. A 3. Does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. 3. So everything the teacher fills out points to ADHD. This is kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I read I listened to your red dye story.
Okay.
And I somebody did tell me about that. But I don't know. It's just, to me, just that even overwhelmed me. Just the reading labels and the I'll try, but no. I think it was beyond my red dye. And I have 2 other kids, and I was pregnant, and I'm like, I can't do try the red dye thing. I barely have enough time to give him attention as it is. I'm not going to be reading. I mean, not that that's bad. I'm sure if you have, you have time to do that.
I think it's interesting with a lot of autoimmune stuff and things like this that you think there might be an underlying cause. Like I think there's a difference between an underlying cause that you can impact and an underlying cause has already done what it's going to do. And
Agreed.
you know what I mean? And it's hard, and it's hard to know because there are just so many streams of information, and the only way you can really figure it out is online and with people sharing their experiences, right? And so it works for some things like diabetes. Like I think that this podcast works well for people who have type 1 or are using insulin. But when you start getting into, I have this thing and it's because of my dog's, fleas, but another person has the same thing and it's because it's an autoimmune disorder, but a third person has the same, symptom, but it's from something else. How do you know which one of those things is the thing that's impacting you, or even if they are, like maybe yours is another thing and so that is a
that
rabbit
can't be
hole.
changed.
It is very, very difficult to figure out. Some people figure it out by mistake. Some people do very specific like eliminations of things, like take everything away and start over again. But I've also seen, bright people try elimination diets for issues they're having with their body, and they never come to an answer. And
and I was not willing. I mean, I just had a baby. I had just had another baby by this point. So I have four kids. Right. I was not going to try the red dye, elimination thing with the other. No, it's too much.
It's just, and the truth, listen, the truth is that you could have done it and then nothing might have happened. And then.
True.
I don't know. And then where do you go from there?
Time wasted.
Well, it's not even the wasted time. It's the what's next. And how many,
that's true.
And how do I even find out what's next? And it's just, and doctors are not always, it's such a, getting away from diabetes for a second. You go into a doctor and you say, look, these are my symptoms. And all a doctor does is go back to credited research and see what your symptoms point to. It's not like a doctor's some magical person who hears what you say and then goes, oh, I know exactly what this is. You got to stop drinking iced tea. You know what I mean? Like it's not like that. It's very, it's eliminating things. It's coming up with possibilities and then eliminating them and then more and more and more. And I don't know, like doctors have trouble doing it. People have trouble doing it. Mothers have trouble doing it. It's not an easy thing to get something like this that is, whatever, type 1 ADHD. It's a lot of confusing stuff. And in the meantime, you're going through terrible things around it as well.
Exactly. And the terrible thing is he was falling behind in school.
Yeah.
Which I didn't like. He got diagnosed at the end of kindergarten, and he was below reading level at that time. He was, I saw it right now. I've kept a lot of the papers, excuse me, that they gave me, and it said he was reading below grade level. So first grade comes around, and I put him on medication. He started on Ritalin, and that was scary. He acted like a zombie and he would fall easily. It would just, I got scared. I said, no, not this one. But I kept him on it for a little bit and it did help. His teachers noticed. They would tell me, he's a little more focused. But I didn't like it.
Yeah. And it wasn't a magic pill either. It wasn't like he took it.
Exactly. It's not a magic. I mean, it kind of, sort of. I mean, it does help a lot, but you're right. It's not a magic pill. It takes away their appetite. They do kind of change their behavior, which sometimes is good. And for him, it was good. He was able to pay attention. He was able to learn more, and it is good. So I started him on Ritalin. That happened, and then I switched to. Someone told me about Concerta, so I got him on Concerta, and that worked better for the rest of the school year, first grade.
Okay.
So Concerta did good, except at the end of the day, when it wore off, he was yelling, he was cranky. And I mean, he does that, but it was over the top. So I decided, I'm going to not do anything starting his second grade year. And so I didn't. We didn't have him on any medication. And they asked us and we said, well, we're just going to see what happens. Hopefully, he grew, he matured. Maybe he doesn't need it. Well, no, same thing. Second grade comes around and he's still not mature. He was a little better, because I guess, the first year, his first grade year, I think he got used to the idea of doing work and learning. And so I think that it helped a lot. But second grade, he still needed it, in my opinion. But we didn't. And Dad was very reluctant to go to medication. And I was too at the beginning. And a lot of people are. And I felt guilty and I felt shame. Like, oh my gosh, I've got my kid on ADHD medication. But honestly, at that point, I felt that way. But I don't anymore. And I feel bad when people say like, oh, my kid has ADHD. And then someone's like, well, try to change their diet or try to do this or, like to avoid medication. And I really don't think people should shame someone for using medication with their child, because some of us need it.
Yeah, I listen, I think if you need it, you need it. I wonder, do you feel like they were trying to shame you by saying, don't try medication, do something else? Or did you just feel shame about it?
I just felt shame about it just because it's out there, like you read things or people on TV or to social media are very quick to judge that.
Right.
And I kind of knew that, even though no one really shamed me, except my husband. He's like, I don't like it. What if we try it without? But I just went with it, and excuse me, and it helped so much, and I don't regret it. And he's still on medication, so it's a decision.
What did you find that worked for him?
Okay. So finally, second grade, no medication.
Right.
Let me go with my timeline. So that's when I left him for 5 months. I came back. We enjoy, after my mom passed away, we had like 3 months left in Okinawa. I enjoyed my summer with them. I would take them to the beach. Did lots of things, but what I remember specifically was when we went to the beach one time, he got cut his on his foot, and it kind of looked like athlete's foot. But it wasn't. It was a cut, and it wouldn't heal. It wouldn't heal. And then my husband was like, well, maybe it's athlete's foot. And he put some antifungal. It still wouldn't heal, but slowly it healed. I remember that specifically. And I also remember one time he ate a bunch of red velvet Oreo cookies, and he got really sick. He threw it all up in his room, and it was red, and the carpet got a big stain on it. But I also remember another time I left him with a friend, and my friend, she fed them cereal the whole day. I just said, go at it. And she fed them, and cereal.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh crap. I let him have cereal the whole day. Anyway, I remember those things vividly. And I remember also thinking, even as a tiny baby, all the way, kids' feet begin to smell, especially when they wear Crocs. It smells like vinegary. It's a nasty smell. Well, his feet never stunk, ever, ever, ever. And I would always tell him, your feet smell so good all the time. They never stink. Okay. Well, we come back, we moved back to the States in 2017. So that year, my mom passed away. My husband's dad also passed away January from cancer, but he had already been diagnosed 3 years before. So, it was a really tough year. And I was, we were beat up emotionally, and I'm sure the kids felt it.
Yeah.
So we went back to El Paso, and we decided to drive, because we had a Suburban. We decided to drive from El Paso to the East Coast where we live. And I'll tell you where we live. We live in Virginia, and that's like a 3-day drive. During the first day, I remember looking at him, and I could see his ribs. Like I could see he had like not his rib. Well, yeah, like I looked at him from behind. He was so thin, and his little ribs would stick out. And I kind of thought, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's never been this thin. And you're in a car for 12 hours a day, and he kept wanting to go to the restroom. And we were like, no, it's ridiculous. It was like every half hour.
Right.
So we had him go in water bottles, empty water bottles, and he would fill them up and he would want more water. And he was eating a lot. And I remember I actually had a type 1 student when I was teaching, because I did teach, face to face.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about the type 1 student. He was an 8th grader, and he would always have to go to the nurse, I think it was right after lunch. So he would always walk in late, and I felt so bad for him because he missed so much material. And I asked him, hey, how'd you know that you had type 1? Like, what were the symptoms? And he told me, I was drinking a lot of water. I was really hungry, but I wouldn't gain weight. And, bam, that hit me in the Suburban. I was like, we were driving and I'm like, oh my God, could it be? And I looked up the symptoms and it said type 1. But, like you've said on the podcast, you don't know, like, I didn't know anything about type 1.
Sure.
But I'm like, it's probably type 1. And I had no sense of urgency. I didn't realize how severe he was already in DKA or starting DKA or something.
I mean, I think if you're seeing his ribs, we were pretty far along.
We were, and he's a thick kid. Right. He's always been a chubby kid. Like, he's just built big, like big boned. And that's not the case for my teenager, and that's not the case for my 7-year-old. They're really thin. But him and my little girl, oh my goodness, they're you can tell they're like hefty. Mm-hmm. And it was unusual for Santiago to be so thin. But we kept driving, whatever. We had bought a house online. Like, we had bought a house from Okinawa. We had never seen the house. So we had to sign papers, closing papers. When we got here, we had to sign closing papers and everything. So I was like, okay, it was the weekend almost. And I said, it was a Thursday that we got here. And I said, we went to sign the papers, and he refused some cookies that they were offering him. And I was like, that's unlike him. And he was just kind of acting up. And then on Friday, he slept once we finished the closing, signing all the closing papers and all that. Friday, he slept the whole day. The entire day, he was asleep. The whole day. And I remember getting very worried. And when I lifted his head, his little ear was like bent, like folded. Mm-hmm. And when you have that and you're asleep, you wake up and it hurts. Well, he didn't even wake up for that. Yeah. And that, like, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to take him somewhere.
Right.
So my husband's like, well, you want me to buy a glucometer? He's a nurse, by the way. Okay. And I said, yeah, go ahead. So he was out doing something. I don't remember. He came back to the house and we tested his blood sugar. It was 419. Oh, goodness. We started crying. My husband started crying. And we just took him to the hospital. We didn't even know where the hospital was. We had to use Google Maps because we just got here.
Yeah.
We show up at the hospital, and my husband's still kind of in denial. Like, could it be a growth spurt? I'm like, no. We know what it is.
Right.
And it's funny, the doctor that saw us there, she actually was a friend of ours, a doctor in Okinawa, and she had also come to the same place in Virginia, and she's the one who told us, he was in DKA and was diagnosed then. Oh goodness, that's such a hard story to tell. Sorry.
No, you did a good job.
Thank you. We just got here, then this type 1 diagnosis. My dad was supposed to leave like a week. Oh, my dad came with us. He drove with us. And so he was supposed to leave like a week after we got here. And he ended up staying like almost a month or two because we needed him. We were in the hospital with Santiago. We have no one here,
Yeah.
We don't know anybody. And thank God he was here because, I have 3 other kids. The little girl, she's 5, my teenager, and my 7-year-old, and well, they needed someone, and he was here and he helped. Thank God. But that was a awful, awful time. But oh goodness, I know it was super unrelated to the ADHD. I know they're completely different. I don't think that the high blood sugars that he was experiencing were ever related to his behavior.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The diabetes came on as its own thing. It wasn't lingering for years and impacting his
I don't
behavior.
know. I
wouldn't
think it's
so
two
either.
different things. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of them is a brain and the other one's
Well,
the endocrine.
It's interesting to listen to you talk about it because you do this thing, which obviously a lot of people do, but I can hear you while you're talking how often you search for triggers for things or reasons. Like in the past, like I can feel you looking back trying to figure out like what did this and what did that, and I know that can be burdensome.
It is, but you do a really good job on all the podcasts, kind of telling people, well, it wasn't your fault. It was kind of just going to happen, and I've accepted that.
Yeah, it's still hard.
But when I
think about it,
I think back, it's like, yeah, it really is. But anyway, that's the diagnosis story.
That's crazy. Well,
and the ADHD came back to haunt us.
Well, I mean, listen, I really do want to kind of focus on that for the rest of the way. So
yeah,
what are the impacts of ADHD and type 1 being together? How does it mess with you?
It's very difficult because we put him on a new medication starting. I held him back actually with the diagnosis for the type 1. He was supposed to go into 3rd grade, but I wanted to hold him back in 2nd grade because of this new diagnosis. And I knew the ADHD and, my mom, I had to be with my mom and I couldn't be there for the rest of the school year. He probably fell behind in school. Mm-hmm. So I said, I'm just going to keep him in 2nd grade. So I did. This new teacher that he got assessed all over again. And yes, he has ADHD again. He started on Strattera,
okay,
which is like, it's not a stimulant, and I actually joined a Facebook group, and they recommended that, and so I asked the doctor, and he's like, "All right, let's try it." Well, it did not do. I mean, the teacher would be like, "Yeah, he was a little better today," but no, emotionally, that. I'm scared of that. He started saying things like, I wish I was never born. And I looked and one of the side effects is suicidal tendencies. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
All right. So we
steered clear. I'm like, nope, yeah. I'm out. I don't care if it's a non-stimulant. No.
Right.
And so after that, I don't remember who suggested Vyvanse. I think it was also the same Facebook group. And so I started him on Vyvanse, and that has been the pill that's worked for us. That's been the medication that works for him and his brain chemistry or whatever. And sometimes, yeah, and it does take away the appetite, which it helps with the type 1. It does because you don't eat, your blood sugars don't go up high. And so it helps in that manner, but it
well, it's interesting.
But it also doesn't help. That's him.
I was going to say.
He's high because he ate cereal and I didn't bolus him enough. Ugh, I'm so angry.
No, don't be. What do you mean you're angry?
I am because we have a endo appointment today. And so,
I always am amused. I always am amused that people think that their endo is not going to understand if your blood sugar's not perfect. They see all your reports. They know it hasn't been perfect.
Yeah, no, it's not that. But I think like, oh my gosh, when he takes his A1C, this is going to affect it. And I've been doing we've been doing all right.
Today will affect the next A1C, not this one. Don't worry. You'll be all right. Yeah.
And our endo, oh my gosh, she's amazing. We love her, but she's military. So I don't want to put her in your list.
Oh, yeah. I understand. Mm-hmm. Well, so you tried 3 or 4 different medications to get to the Vyvanse?
This is the 4th one.
Yeah.
Vyvanse is the 4th one. So yeah, it's not try this, it'll work. You also have to be a judge. Like, okay, well, is he improving in school and
Yeah.
behavior, like, focus and behavior, or is it just one, or is it, side effects, or is it worth it?
Hmm.
And to us, the Vyvanse is worth it. But like I said, it does affect his appetite. And that could be difficult because, basal insulin is like the more you eat, the more basal you'll probably need.
Hmm.
That's what I've seen on him. So like when he doesn't, and sometimes I don't give it to him on the weekends because I want him to eat. Although he's chubby now. So, it kind of helps with weight control too. That's horrible to say, but it really does because he eats a lot and he does exercise, but not as much. And sometimes with your sugar being all over the place, you're like, okay, exercise. Okay, wait, don't. And so it's not a consistent kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's listed as a stimulant that can treat ADHD and a binge eating disorder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I can see that.
Well, so, oh my gosh. First of all, are you okay? Because
yeah.
Oh, good. Because how are the other three kids? Anything going on with them?
Oh God. It's so funny you ask because right now I'm very overwhelmed. My teenager is having issues with IBD. The doctor hasn't diagnosed him with IBD, but it's kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
And, he got a colonoscopy, he got an endoscopy, and inflammation's there. And he said he doesn't want to call it Crohn's yet because he doesn't kind of want to label him yet.
Okay.
And so he's giving him some medication to see if it kind of goes away and see what happens. But yeah, that one, yes. And my 7-year-old, he's got like asthma, like, and I wouldn't call it like real true asthma because I know what true asthma is. This is more like he gets a cold and he's like wheezing right now because he just got a cold. He's got that. Then, and there's food allergies too, peanut allergy with him. And then my teenager's got food allergies also. Just, it is a lot.
So IBD, asthma, type 1, ADHD, food allergies. Does your husband or you have any of these things?
No.
Anybody in the family line that you're aware of?
There's a lot of type 2, like his mom side of the family is heavy type 2. She's got type 2. She's in, what do you call it? Dialysis and stage renal.
But no other autoimmune
stuff?
Like celiac or thyroid?
Thyroid, yes, my mom. Hypo.
All right.
My dad's brothers have type 2. And it's not from obesity or anything. They
just have it.
Their weight is fine. Yeah, it's like type 2 diabetic, but how type 2 is always associated with weight and all that, but they're not. They're not super obese or anything. You would look at them and you'd think they're fine.
But somebody's weight's not a good indicator of whether or not they have type 2 diabetes. It's just how people tend to think about it. But there's a lot of so look, ADHD, is talked about as an inflammatory problem, which then leads that to be autoimmune. Food allergies can be autoimmune. Type 1 is autoimmune. Asthma, by the way, is autoimmune. And so is irritable bowel. So, yeah, you guys have like a cornucopia of
it's there
of different things. No kidding. Jeez.
Yep.
How old?
But we dodged them.
You and
my husband and I dodged them. I don't know how.
So I don't know anything about this, but it makes me wonder if it's sort of like one of those things like recessive and dominant genes and two of one get together and make another. I don't know if that's possible or not.
Maybe.
I might be talking out of my butt, but that's fascinating that there's so many kids with different stuff and yet you guys are just untouched by it. That's really fascinating.
It is weird, but let me tell you something. My grandmother on my mom's side, she lived to 106. So, and with no medical issues.
Jeez, she sounds lucky.
So, by the way, but she was, they call it Indian, but Native American from Mexico, and so she got a lot of, I guess, good blood or.
Yeah. leave people outside for enough generations, they toughen up. No, that's well, that's a real crazy line. It really is. That's a lot of.
And let me mention something else. My grandma, yes.
I'm sorry. No, I meant go ahead, please.
Oh, my grandma had my mom told me this story. She had like 8 kids, but she had other kids that died, as kids. But the one and that was back then, it was like normal that they died before the age of 3, let's say. But she had one that died at the age of 8. And my mom's gone, so I can't ask her. And she never knew about something. I was, because it happened after she passed away, about that son of her brother that passed away at the age of 8. I'm always thinking about that. Could it have been like type 1?
Yeah.
And they didn't know.
Could have been any number of these things, honestly, without medical intervention. We talk about it here sometimes, in our house. And I don't say it a ton on the podcast, but 3 of the 4 people in my immediate family would not be alive without modern medicine and intervention on some level or not. My wife grew up with terrible ear infections that clearly 200 years ago would have killed her. I had my appendix, went south on me, which before surgery would have killed me. And Arden has type 1 diabetes, which would have, by the way, I know this is crazy, but I was right by mistake, and now everyone's going to probably think I'm an idiot, but Arden was diagnosed on August 22nd, 2006, which was
there you go.
a month after her birthday. But I didn't remember that when I was talking to you just now. I had to look on my own blog to the first time I ever wrote something on a blog, which was August 16th, 2007. And I started off by saying, that I haven't been able to sleep for about a year. And then Arden's about to be a type 1 for 1 year on August 22nd. And then I'm starting a blog. Isn't that crazy? 2007.
Yeah.
Because what is it? It's 2021, isn't it? You want to do the math on that? Hold on. 3 gets you to 10. 21's 11. You add 11 to 3. You get 14. I've been doing this for 14 years.
Yes.
Between the blogging,
because she's 16, so yeah, and
See?
she was 2 when she was diagnosed.
So you knew better than I did. I had to figure it out. You were able to pick through it. It's interesting. You can figure out my stuff, but not your own stuff, and I can't.
No, because I'm like thinking of it. Yeah.
And I'm sitting over here trying to figure out everything that's happening to my family as well. So
we're almost twinsies.
Yeah, well, I think we all are. Seriously, it's completely. I was going to say it can be overwhelming, but it is overwhelming because, you look out the door and you think, well, that guy's okay. Like I look at my neighbor seems fine. Probably doesn't have any problem in the world. Talking to him one day, he's had hypothyroidism for like 9 years. He's a guy in his early 60s.
Don't know.
My other neighbor, like literally, we're, as close to these people as you can be to neighbors. And if one of my other neighbors would never have told me, I never would have known she had breast cancer.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's inside your home. It's easy to feel like, oh, stuff is happening to us. It's just to us. But a lot of people have stuff like this. And I mean, there's that like pie in the sky feeling like that, they're, your great grandmother, whoever who lived to like 300 years old, but that's not the norm. That's, it just isn't the norm to live your whole life 100 years and not get sick ever.
No, not anymore anyway.
Yeah. Well, and especially when you're saying just a couple of generations ago, people were losing their children like they were losing their iPhone down a couch cushion. Just, where's that one? Where'd this one go? 3, 8, people died. So now you get to stay alive longer and you find out what happens. You need some medical intervention, And I think that seriously though, you have to say, I'm alive. I get to live a life. It's sometimes it's not the perfect one, but there is no alternative to, the opposite of being alive is not existing. So there's no alternative except to take, the cards you're dealt and do the best you can with them.
Yeah. And I take that like that's how your podcast, believe it or not, has helped me see, like, not see that, but feel that and push through it and not feel like sorry for myself or sorry for our family, but just, and I tell my teenager that because, he's going through a lot. He also has like anxiety issues and stuff. And I tell him, because he's like, oh, how could other people just enjoy? And, I'm stuck here. And I go, we just gotta work with what we have, and that's all, and try to do the best that we can with what it is. Because I tell him, you're a very smart boy, you're intelligent, you will go other places that others won't, who might be having fun right now. So you gotta kind of, like you say, play the cards you're dealt, because we have other strengths that others might not, and so you push through, and just don't even think about all the stuff you're going through. Well, you do think about it, but I'm saying, it's okay. We'll get through this.
Yeah, you can't let it weigh on you. And you have to understand, too, that the thing you dreamt about that maybe isn't your dream. You know what I mean? Just because when you're 9 years old, you think to yourself, like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. When I grow up, I'm going to do this. And it doesn't work out that way. It's funny, when it doesn't work out that way, most people just pivot. But when it doesn't work out that way because of a health issue, you feel like it was taken from you. Listen, how many kids play a sport, as young kids, right? There's most of them. But, when you're 25 and you haven't played soccer since you were 11, you don't think that somebody came along and stole your soccer dream away. You think, well, it just wasn't for me. I wasn't, it ended up, I wasn't a college soccer player. I'm not a professional soccer player, whatever it ends up being. But when you have a dream of doing something and then a medical thing gets in your way, you think, well, now this has been taken from me. Not just that the natural progression of my life didn't lead me in this direction. And it's, I understand why.
That really speaks to me, because I feel like I've felt that the type 1 diagnosis kind of took my career away. Like, I was thinking, okay, well, when we go back to the States, I will find a face to, like a real, not that virtual is not real, but like a face-to-face job as a teacher again, because I love teaching high school, and I had that in mind. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and bam, type 1. No, right. You're not. And that's how I felt.
Yeah. Oh no, it's not inaccurate, because it is what happened. I mean, most of my life is not what I expected, and a majority of that is because of diabetes. Some of it's because of other people's health issues and the way they lead you into certain, like, it is what it is. My life did not turn out like a television show. That's for certain. Right. Like, I'm not, but
kind of, though, like a movie. Well, yours anyway.
It's a horror movie,
now you got this really successful podcast.
It's more like a horror movie, but you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like everybody's not smiling, and we don't have a little pot roast at the end of the evening and then sit around the fire, and, then dad comes home and trips over the ottoman. It's not like that. It's like a real life. It is. And I agree. And also the type 1, all these health issues, they take a toll on the marriage. I find myself getting so angry at my husband over dumb things. Like what?
Like this morning, I grab my coffee. I grab my coffee creamer, and I don't drink like the regular milk based. I like the almond coffee creamer. So I buy my own, and I buy him his French vanilla, gross milk based one, and mine is almost empty, and I'm like, why has he been using my coffee creamer? I bought him his. It's right there, it's full. And Nidia, dumb things like that.
Nidia, I want to tell you something right now. Okay, when you started telling that story, every married guy listening was like, uh-oh, here it comes. and interestingly, the women listening who are married are like, oh, Nidia's crazy. I would never do anything like that. But you all do. I just want you to know that. We all do.
Oh,
like everybody, every time you hear somebody else say something and you're like, oh, that's weird, you do the same thing. You just probably do it around something different. Nidia, you're crazy. Let's let the guy eat the coffee creamer and just stop it. Don't worry about it.
Go buy more. I know. Just go buy more.
But not crazy. Maybe crazy to believe that somehow this is going to change. You know what I mean? Like that's the interesting thing. Like, I mean, how many times do you need to see something before you say to yourself, I should lose this expectation? Like,
you're right. You're right.
That's all. I don't know what to say there. That's I think that happens to both sexes in a standard marriage between a man and a woman. I think that I could get your husband on here and he would tell 25 stories of weird things you do that bug him. Right. And you can do the same thing. So I don't know. Like,
but we also we also fight. Well, those little arguments then blow up into bigger fights. And for example, I don't even know what we were fighting about, but the fact that I take care of Santiago and he has kind of nothing to do with it came up, and I don't mind at all.
Did it come up when you brought it up? By the way.
I don't remember if I don't think I did.
Because
I think he might.
You think he started the conversation by saying, I'm not really involved in this diabetes thing at all. No, that's because that sounds like something I'd shut up about if I was him. So
I don't think so. Can you believe I don't even remember how it came up? But he's like, it really ticked me off. He's like, you take care of him because I let you. If I took care of him, I'd probably be doing a better job than you. He pushed my buttons.
Yeah. Well, you know what you should do? Don't buy him any more creamer and hide yours. I think that's what you got to do.
I could easily hide it.
See? Let him live without creamer for a couple of weeks and see what happens.
We were just jabbing at each other that day, but he really knew how to get to me that day, and I was so angry.
Yeah. Now I think
I told him, I said, "Oh, make sure Santiago boluses for this," and I said, "Oh, but you don't know because we're using Loop actually," and so he was very against it, and he's like, "It's not FDA certified, blah blah blah." I said, "That's okay. I think I know what I'm doing now. After 3 years and a lot of podcast listening." Right. And he's like, "It's not FDA approved. I don't want to do that." And so I tried it in November, the Loop. And then it was overwhelming back then because you've said it. I heard those podcasts with the first one with Jenny where you said, if I didn't have you, I'd quit in a week.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have done it for 6 days, I don't think, without having somebody to lean on.
I quit in a week. Especially because I think I tried to show him something and he's like, "I'm not learning that. It's not FDA approved," or something like that, some flippant thing. And I oh my gosh, I was so angry. And I tried to do it, but his, how you bolus food and it kind of goes high. And I tried open, and then his cannula went off, and then his blood sugar was like 400. And I was like, oh my God, it just went really bad. And then I didn't have support from him. So I was like, forget it. So I quit, but then I came back to it in December.
I think the real thing we've learned here in this hour is that if you're by yourself, it's lonely, and when you're with other people, you find yourself thinking, "I wonder what it would be like to be lonely."
But I would never. We have all these fights.
You would never kill him and put him in a small box? That's not what you were going to say, is it? No, of course not. Listen, you're
no, we would. I don't think I wouldn't leave him. No,
I'm not saying that. How long you been married?
98.
Yeah, you're in the 25-year range.
Almost 20.
Yeah.
This 21, 22, 23 years.
Yeah. All you have to do is make it through like the next 5 or 6 years, and this will all just fade away again. Then you can just stare at each other until it's over. It'll be nice. Finally, there'll be nothing to argue about.
I guess.
You guess. No, I think it's interesting when you've been together with somebody for so long, and it's just. There's a decision you make in your head when you start my wife will say something and I'll have to think to myself, like, do I want to fight about that? And then most of the time I go, no, I don't. And then I just, I artfully move past it. I'm sure she does the same thing with me. But there's that once in a while where something gets said and you're like, yeah, I'm going to plant a flag on this hill and fight for a while.
You're right. You're right. That does happen. I'm like, okay, whatever. He's angry, or he's tired from work. Let it go.
It never ends well. I have never once thought, let me fight this fight. And then at the end thought, well, that went well. I'm glad I did that. Never once. It's never happened to me. I've always regretted it afterwards.
My therapist, so okay, I won't fight.
Is your phone?
I don't avoid it.
Did you, by any chance, unlock your iPhone? It's making a weird. I'm getting a weird noise on your end.
Let me see. No, I didn't.
All right. Well then.
But I was leaning back on the chair. That might have been making some noise.
No. This is very electronic noise. Something's interfering with us all of a sudden. But anyway, it does. You know what? It's good. It's a good time to say goodbye anyway, because we've been at it for a while. I want to say this, Nidia. I really appreciate you coming on. Most people who end up coming on telling their stories about things like ADHD and diabetes, or just recently I've been having a conversation with someone about like, oh, I need you to have talk to somebody about PCOS. I want everyone to realize there are no like people with magic answers out in the world. And you have people on to have these conversations to find similarities and maybe be able to pick through them and, get a couple of ideas here or there, or at least just feel comfortable that somebody else is living the same existence. But there are not a lot of magic people with answers. Like, I think that's a construct of, like major media. Like, we're going to bring on this expert now who's going to tell you how to do this. And it just doesn't really exist, whether it's, ADHD or type 1 diabetes or anything like that. You're just going to hear ideas, and hopefully some of them are going to meld into your life. And once in a while we get super lucky, right? And we find Jenny. But for the most part, when there are issues that have so many varying approaches. I mean, look at this with ADHD, 4 medications to find an answer for your son. You just got to hear the stories and figure out what's going on. But, I guarantee you that this started with Nidia saying, like, I hope you can we have an episode with someone with ADHD? I need to hear from somebody with ADHD. And she turns out she's the person you're hearing from. So I really appreciate you doing it.
No problem. And I one more thing I want to add.
Nidia, you can't though, because your voice is completely bonkers. If you really have something you want to say, I'll disconnect and we can reconnect and try it.
Sure, because I do.
Okay, so, all right, say hello.
Hello.
There we go.
All right. I just wanted to share something with you.
Please. Yeah.
So I'm in your Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like in 3-4 type 1 Facebook groups, and I'm in this one that's called T1D Moms, I think.
Okay.
So, they ask questions, or you ask questions and they answer. And this young lady, she asked a question. She said something about, my daughter's always in the 200s. I'm not comfortable. And I replied, oh, you probably just need more insulin. And she had said that her doctor said that for her daughter's weight, that was, what she was given was supposed to be enough. So that's what I said. It doesn't matter how much she weighs. Everyone's needs are different. So she ends up messaging me like privately,
mm-hmm.
and we start, talking, and I did a Scott on her.
Did you talk to her through
and I'm actually helping her. Yeah. We upped her Lantus. I mean, obviously I tell her, I would do this if I were you. And, I've heard, and I told her about your podcast. She listens now.
Oh, well, hello.
And her name's Marisa, and she's like, yeah, I don't mind you using me. And I just wanted to talk to you about, your podcast has not only helped myself, but now I feel like you do. Like it made me feel so good. I'm, upping her Lantus and helping her with all these boluses has really helped her daughter. I think she was at an 8.5 A1C last time she went 3 months ago. And with just like almost 2 weeks of help, she just went in and her A1C was 7.5.
Well, that's astonishing.
And it was only 2 weeks of me helping her. And she said she used to be in the 200s, hovering on the 200s. And her nurse practitioner is like, don't give her insulin, every 3 hours, do the correction, and don't feed her more than 45 carbs. And And I said, that's baloney. Feed her whatever you want.
How long has her child had diabetes?
10 months.
Okay. Well,
And but the nurse practitioner was not being helpful. Not even in this last appointment she had. She said the nurse practitioner was like, well, no, don't give her insulin unless she eats, and don't correct, only after 3 hours, only 45 grams of carbs. And she didn't even give her a Omnipod, I'm thinking in Spanish, prescription.
Okay.
Until she goes to class. And I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky not to have to our endo, just gives me what I want. And here's this nurse practitioner not letting her get what she wants. And I understand, she wanted to give her the InPen just to track her information. Mm-hmm. But I was like, don't pay for something that you're not going to use. You want the Omnipod, just get the Omnipod.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, in the beginning of diagnosis, you get sometimes sketchy help, and then it takes a little time to figure out if that's going to be the quality of care all along, or if they were easing you into it. I never know which is, you'll never know which it is in the beginning, but it's wonderful that you guys found each other.
Yeah. Really cool. And so thank you. You not only helped, me, and let me tell you just one more thing. You help people not only like with the management, but for me, it's emotionally, excuse me. You have helped a lot, with and I can't tell you specifically how, but a lot of the things that you say just really helped me get comfortable. And I've gotten comfortable where I'm at. I might even consider studying to be a diabetes educator, maybe.
I don't know where you're going to find time for that, but that would be amazing if you did that.
It might happen one day.
Good for you. Well, listen, that is very kind of you to share with me. I really appreciate it. I'm happy.
No problem.
I'm so happy that the podcast has been valuable for you, and then it allowed you to, be valuable in somebody else's life. That is really the goal, is that for people to talk about this in a way that's not restrictive to their good health outcomes. So
I agree.
I can't reach everybody. You. No, I can't believe you're thanking me, but that's very kind. You're welcome. It means a lot to me. I don't know what to say. It makes me feel weird.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, just again, thanks again for everything, all your experience, all your years of experience, and just kind of giving it out for free.
Nice. That's Lisa. Hey, there's advertisers. It's not like I am, I'm getting paid. It's just not by you. I feel very strangely about, I don't know if this is not really a critique about others, but there's a real trend in social media right now to charge people for the things and I just don't have that in me. I don't understand. I could never do that. Like, I could never say, like, Nidia, guess what? For just $69 a month, you can be in my Facebook group and ask people, we'll have a Zoom meeting, and I don't get all that. Like, I'm not, maybe it just generationally misses me, but I have more of a capitalist mind. I think if I put out something that's quality, I could sell an ad on it, and then you can get the information. I can be covered for my time, and everybody wins, is how it seems to me. So,
that's been the case.
Yeah. No, and being completely clear, prior to the last couple of years of the podcast, I've never taken an ad in my life. Like, when I started that blog back in 2007, people offered me ads, and I was like, no, it's okay. Like, I didn't need it to do to make the blog, but the podcast has become an amount of time that I had to give away other ways that we were supporting ourselves. So,
so it
ends up being what it is. But I really appreciate that. It's really kind of you. I'm thrilled, honestly. I don't sound thrilled because I don't modulate my voice around this, because I usually just get embarrassed, but it's really cool. Really cool to hear that you.
I just wanted to share. I thought that was pretty neat that she trusted me to guide her, and they're doing great.
Well, you know what happened? You get desperate enough, you're just like, all right, say it again. What now?
I think she knew she could do better, and I told her she's a great mom for
trying.
Yes, for searching and trusting somebody.
I agree. Well, I want to wish you a ton of luck, and everybody in your house a lot of luck. And how long have you been in Virginia now?
This is our third. No, wait. we're going on our 4th year now. So yeah, we extended. So it was supposed to be only 3 years, but with the diagnosis and everything, I'm like, I know I had enough. Let me just stay somewhere
still.
for
Well,
6 years.
I have a question before I let you go and a comment. So my question is, how did it end up buying a house sight unseen? Did that work out?
It did.
Oh, good.
We love the house. Yeah.
Good. And a long time ago in our conversation, it's got to be 45 minutes ago, you were trying to come up with the word impulsive, and you stopped to find it. And after you found it, you said thank you out loud. Who were you thanking?
Myself.
Oh. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a voice in your head. That's all.
No, I'm bilingual. So I sometimes I forget words.
Yeah.
And I search and I'm like, oh, where is it?
So I imagined that's what you were doing. I just didn't know who you thanked at the end. I was like, I didn't know if you had a friend named Patty that lives on your shoulder. And you're like, thank you, Patty.
I'm not that crazy.
Yeah, that's just my little wellness check for you. You seem like you're okay, so never mind.
I'm all right.
Well, first of all, let's thank Nidia for coming on the show and doing such a terrific job. I had a great time talking to her. I hope you enjoyed listening. I also want to thank Touched by Type 1 and remind you to go to touchedbytype1.org or find them on Facebook and Instagram. And then all those series that I told you about. Remember the Diabetes Pro Tip series, Defining Diabetes, Algorithm Pumping, Diabetes Variables, After Dark, How We Eat. There are so many to choose from. Check them out at juiceboxpodcast.com. And while you're there, click on the links for the sponsors. Support the show.